Frank J. Avella with the Contending. I am so happy to welcome Titanic talent in a currently killing it is Helen in the smash musical comedy Death Becomes Her on Broadway. Jennifer Simard. Jennifer, welcome.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh God,
You
you're
know,
so
you
welcome.
said you said Titanic. I thought I'd love to be in Titanic. Alice, maybe? I don't know. You know,
You would be great in Titanic,
right? My
actually.
friend Vicky Clark originated that role. It'd be great.
Yeah, I saw it 9 times on Broadway, believe it or not.
All right.
I just loved your performance. So I have to say, Megan might be the one singing about the gays, but the gays love you.
Well, that's so kind to hear. I love the gays, and I've been doing this for a minute, and I I love the loyalty of the Broadway fan base and how, they've just sort of followed my career. My fans have followed my career and seen me in all kinds of shows, right? So it's really something. I think the first time I realized that the fan base I had was when I went on as Joanne in Company for Patti LuPone when she was out with COVID. Because as you know, normally I was Sarah, but I got to go on for about a week and a half or so, um, unexpectedly. And I think there was a tweet with a red siren saying, Samard is on. This is not a drill. This is not a drill. It was the first time I realized, oh my goodness, there was things happening I didn't even know of, to your point, and I feel so honored.
Oh,
Thank you.
and I saw you in this. It's crazy to think of how many things I have seen you in, starting with "I Love You, You're Perfect." I saw that back in grad school, and you were
Oh my
fantastic.
gosh, this is a deep cut. Thank you. I'm so glad that you saw that. It was really one of the biggest markers in my life for why I've been able to sustain my career as long as I have. The show ran for 12 years. Danny Burstein is still a great friend of mine. We met on that show. We just went for a walk the other day in Riverside Park. And, it's meant so much to me, both in my personal and professional life. So I'm so glad you saw it.
Well, I want to start with a question you get all the time, I'm sure, but how did you get involved with the show?
So it was August of 2022. Company had just closed the month prior on July 31st. And I got a call that the team, the Death Becomes Her team, was interested in me being part of a 1 week reading right around Labor Day. And they sent me the material and I read and I listened and I thought, absolutely, this is me. She's an every woman who um, transforms, and I know a little something about feeling the way Helen feels. And I think I can relate to what every woman feel like, having, I'm familiar with heartbreak. I'm familiar with, um, maybe feeling ordinary next to the more glamorous girl. And so it's really exciting for me. And it was exciting for me in that September to bring what I thought I had to offer. And they luckily agreed.
Well, and what's so great about your Helen is, yeah, the blueprint of the film is there, but you make her brand new for the stage. Can
Yeah.
you speak a little bit about that? Was that happening at the very beginning?
Yes, I am of the school that you must bring yourself to every role, uh, no matter how disguised you may be. From the most straight character, let's say, the one that's maybe the most like you, to the most broad character work. And as you've seen, Helen is basically about seven different characters all in one person, right? So a lot of my past experience playing many different characters, such as I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change, came to play in this. And I've been a huge fan not only of Meryl Streep, but of the woman whose shoes I'm, so blessed and privileged to be charged with stepping into, Ms. Goldie Hawn. I immediately knew I'm never going to be Goldie Hawn. There's only one Goldie Hawn and no one could be as good as her. The only thing I can do is look in the mirror and try to be as good as I can be. We all have to do that, right? just
Yeah.
the only person you're competing with is the one staring back at you. So I thought, let me bring myself to it. Let me bring all of my experience on the Broadway and off Broadway stage and all of my life experience and what I have learned to my character work. And I always try to bring my pain to a character. I think that's where the best comedy lies. And luckily, Helen has a lot to do, and, in film, you have to be very subtle. And in our show, there are times where I can be subtle, and then there's times where I have to be quite broad because the medium is inherently different. And hopefully, even with the broad strokes, there's truth underneath because I can honestly say I deeply feel a relationship to Helen myself as Jennifer.
Well, I love the one-upsmanship because it transforms into this bond between you two, like a sistership.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, starts as a rivalry, right? Becomes something almost transcendent, and it subverts this constant messaging that women need to be in competition.
Oh, correct. Let's reclaim the narrative, ladies. Absolutely. Um, that's one thing I love about this. Just the other night, we were leaving stage. It was well into Act Two. We're in our purple gowns that we've changed into, and we've just gone to Viola's mansion, and we've spoken with Chagall at the door outside of Viola's mansion. This is a scene that takes place far downstage right, and then we quickly exit. But as we're exiting, I remember saying to Megan, you know what I love about this show for us, Megan? I said, I love that we as women get to have what the guys normally get, that we get to be the buddy flick, is what I said. Like we get to be, the Nathan Lane and the Matthew Broderick. Like we get to be those funny characters that often are charged to the men. And I love men and I want the men to keep having that stuff, but it's so great for women to be recognized as funny, intelligent creatures who are capable of working together beautifully and not only as Madeline and Helen, of course, but also as I hope as Megan and Jennifer. And I hope our chemistry and genuine caretaking and love for one another comes across the stage.
Oh God, I think it does. I think it
Yeah,
does. The two
good.
performances I saw.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's a
Uh,
good thing you didn't see the third, though. I'm not sure about that. That's a joke.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So your big number, Let's Run Away Together, total
Yeah.
showstopper. I'm curious, do you have a favorite moment or number in the show, or does it change?
Well, when they asked me to do this reading, when I got to that number, I was like, thank God they asked me to do this because I just knew exactly what to do with it. I knew it was perfect for my vocal range and I love to do that and it's so difficult to do a patter song and belt that high at the same time and run around. And I remember in rehearsals, I would wear weights on my ankles just to make it easier to run around and basically attack Christopher Sieber every night in more ways than one. So that number has got to be my favorite. And I'd say tied with that, of course, is the duet I sing with Megan at the end, Alive Forever.
Yeah.
To your previous question, it is wonderful to get to work with another woman whom I admire and respect so much as Megan, and in these two delicious, arguably two of the greatest now female roles ever written for Broadway. I mean, they're just fabulous. What the composers and lyricists and the book writer have done is tremendous from this source material.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit because Best Actress in a Musical, the category this year is insane.
Yeah.
Uh, and so is Best Actress at the Oscars. Have we turned a corner where we're getting more significant female roles?
Let me tell you this, Frank. If you want to know the most stacked competitive category in any Broadway year, I just want you to look at what category Jennifer Simard is in, and then you'll know. Usually it's featured actress, right? The first year I was graced with a nomination was the year of Hamilton, right? And I remember seeing it in November of 2015, knowing that disaster was coming in, and I didn't know if I'd be lucky enough to be nominated. That was also just full of incredible performances. So I was, phew, so lucky. But the minute I saw Renee Lee Goldsberry do Satisfied, I was like, I'm satisfied that that is next year's Tony winner. And I think it worked out as it should. But that was like, a huge year. And then, of course, who am I that I got that lucky enough to be nominated twice? But it was Patty, with Patty, my legend, legendary co-star. I can't even call it co-star. Her Patty is Joanne and Company. Give me a break. So again, a really chalked category. So this year, I can only say that I am, like I have with those other two women who I've spoken with, I hope, with great admiration and reverence. That's how I feel about my category. These are my girlfriends. I know all of them, or most all of them. And the ones I haven't met, I look forward to meeting. But, it's just a incredible year. And what I always come back to me, is that it's about the work.
Yeah.
No matter what happens with the nominations, I will always want it to be about the work. And as long as my work is something I feel good about, then the rest is not up to me. And I hope my other actress friends feel that way too, because it really is about the work, and these incredible women are all doing that.
Yeah, and I think awards, it's more like starting a conversation more than and getting people in the door to come see the shows more than anything else.
Yeah. Listen, I remember during COVID, I think it was Brian Stokes Mitchell saying it was going to, and Charlotte St. Martin saying their guests for Broadway to come back was about 4 years. And I remember we opened our show in 2024, last fall. And it was just over 4 years, 4.5 years. And here we are. And it does feel, the temperature to me feels very different than when Company came back, because of course, we had Omicron, and all the Broadway shows were struggling with these variants, right? And even though we were back, it didn't feel like it feels now, which is a bit of a shoulder drop and a celebration. And that's one thing I love about Death Becomes Her. It feels to me like the kind of show that we wanted after the pandemic, just a big old traditional Broadway musical, like a home run derby. Boom, that's how I feel about this show.
The excitement of the audience members on the line, which by the way goes all the way down the block to get into the Fontaine, is
Ooh.
extraordinary.
See, that I love hearing that, because I'm one of those. I'm of the Bernadette Peters school of when to get to the theater. I get to the theater about 3 hours before the show, and just very early, give or take, right? I don't want to out when Bernadette gets to the show. Nobody pays. Okay. But you get to work early so you can, get your thinking cap on and do all the things you need to do. So I miss the line, I'm probably in my room by then, but I might have to peek out my window and check it out.
Do it, do it. I'm curious, Jennifer, do you get a chance? Have you gotten a chance to see a lot of the shows? I know you probably only have like one night to do it.
Yeah, I have not, unfortunately. This is the old conundrum. When you are free to see the Broadway shows, you maybe don't get invited as much. And then when you're in a Broadway show, all of your sister and brother shows are always inviting you, but you don't have the time, right? So, I see what I can in terms of clips. And again, these are my friends that I've worked with for 30 years. So I know how good they are, and I do look forward to seeing them when I can.
I want to go back to talking a little bit about Company because you
Yeah.
guys had a few performances pre-pandemic, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we had about 12.
Yeah, and then we all shut down
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
came back. What was it like returning?
Well, if I'm being perfectly honest, my fantasy of what it was like returning was so different than the reality. I think I pictured a giant ribbon cutting ceremony where we could all, and I'm not just talking about Broadway, I'm also talking about the macrocosm in addition to the microcosm of Broadway. I envisioned this giant ribbon cutting ceremony. We're like, okay, wow, we made it, and the pandemic's over. And as we all know, we were still living with variant after variant after variant. And so it was difficult insofar as wonderful as it was to come back, because none of us knew if we would ever have this again, let alone the life-saving vaccines that we have. It was difficult insofar as I'm of the opinion that human beings aren't meant to live at orange and red alert for a sustained period of time as we all were. So coming into work every day, swabbing every day, wearing a mask every day, I would have a mask in my sports bra on stage so that the minute I was in the wings, not even in my dressing room, I'd have the mask on and climbing up the stairs and down the stairs. And of course, you want to not be in a position to disappoint anyone, and at the same time alleviating that sort of responsibility from one's shoulders and creating a judgment-free zone for people because we were all in it together.
Yeah.
And it was no one's fault if someone got sick. It was really a lesson in learning, how to have empathy and be kind to one another even more than you thought was possible. So I have to say it was exhausting from an emotional point of view.
Yeah.
And then of course the very positive thing was also painful. It was painful to think about what we'd all just been through and the gratitude about coming back, as wonderful as it was, always had, for me, always had this layer of just deep reverence and pain that we were lucky enough to be back. I'll never forget that first night back inside that little box, to mimic a New York City apartment, and how surreal and fabulous a creation that was from the team. But it was beautiful and it was sad.
Wow. And it was yet another female empowering show. I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Katrina Lank is a leader that I would
Oh,
follow to the ends of the earth. She was a wonderful, wonderful leader for our company.
extraordinary. Jennifer, when was it that you knew that this was what you wanted to do with your life?
I was 4.5 years old, and I was sitting on my mother's coat in the front row balcony of the beautiful Palace Theater in Manchester, New Hampshire, which was built in 1915 and looks like any of the jewels that we have down on Broadway. And I was sitting there and I was watching a production of Fiddler on the Roof. And I saw, of course, the littlest daughter, who I later became friendly with and who was my age. And I was like, and I turned to my mother and I tugged her shirt. And I said, Mom, who's that? I don't want to be up here. I want to be down there. And so I knew from
It's
that early. Yeah.
amazing. I know you've done quite a bit of film and TV as well. I'm curious. We want to see you more
Me
on
too.
screen.
Me too. Let's manifest it together, you and I.
Okay, let's make it
Yeah.
happen.
Okay.
Do you know what you're doing beyond Death Becomes Her is my final question to you.
I do not. This is my life happily and fully for the foreseeable future. And I'm a big believer in living in the present. And I've really, it's something I always aspired to. And then through life happening, it's something I have finally internalized in the last 2 years. Not to live in the past and not to live in the future, to live right now.
I love it. I love it. I want to thank you. I've seen you in Dolly. I've probably seen you in everything you've done on Broadway except for Spelling Bee. And you're just a joy. You're a joy in this show, and I wish you lots of broken legs come May.
We'll see. And I'm just happy to be there doing the work and talking to people like you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jennifer.